Following the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the demigods approached the HG Muni and begged for his body. The HG Muni, just to hear from the demigods about principles of religion, jokingly refused to relinquish his body. But for higher purposes, he thereafter agreed to give it up. For after death, the body is usually eaten by low animals like dogs and jackals. The HG Muni first merged his gross body made of 5 elements into the original stock of 5 elements, and then engaged his soul at once into the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, he gave up his gross body. With the help of Vishwakarma, the demigods then prepared a thunderbolt from the teacher's bones. Armed with the thunderbolt weapon, they prepared themselves to fight and got up on the backs of the elephants. At the end of Satya Yuga and at the beginning of Satya Yuga, a great fight took place between the demigods and the asuras. Unable to tolerate the effulgence of the demigods, the asuras fled the battle, leaving Vritrasura, their commander-in-chief, to fight for himself. Vritrasura, however, seeing the demons fleeing, instructed them in the importance of fighting and dying on the battlefield. One who is victorious in battle gains material possessions, and one who dies in the battlefield attains residence at once in the celestial heavens. In either way, the fighter benefits. So there will be a whole sequence of shlokas with no purpose, maybe I should just read this. So this is text 1.
Text 4 is on the board, maybe it's already.
You read to look at this?
No, I said text 4 is on.
Oh, on the phone, okay. Shri Vadarnaya Vacha Indramivam Samadhishya Bhagavan Vishwabhagav Bhavanaha Ashratam Animishranam Tatraivam Targade Hari. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, after instructing Indra in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, the cause of the cosmic manifestation, then and there disappeared from the presence of onlooking demigods. Dhamyachito devair rishi atharvano man modamana uvachedam rahasaniva bharata. O King Parikshit, following the Lord's instructions, the demigods approached Aditya, the son of Atharva. He was very liberal, and then when they begged him to give them his body, he at once partially agreed. However, just to hear religious instructions from them, he smiled and jokingly spoke as follows. Ape lingaraka yuyam najanita sharirinam samsthayamis tabhi drodhodroho duhashash chitanapaha. O elevated demigods, at the time of death, severe, unbearable pain takes away the consciousness of all living entities who have accepted material bodies. Don't you know about this pain? So now comes forward. Jiji Vishunam Jivanam Atma Rishta Yepshita Utsaheta tam datum vikshamanaya Vishnave Jivishunam Jivanam Atma Prishtaye Sita Utsaheta tam datum vikshamanaya Vishnave Jivishunam Jivanam
Atma Prishta Ihipshitaha Ka Utsahita Tam Datum Vikshamanaya Vishnave
Jivisunam Jivanam Atma Prishtayipsita Kautsaheta Tam Datum Vikshamanaya Vishnave Jivishunam,
inspiring to remain alive.
aspiring to remain alive.
Jivanam,
Jivanam,
of all living entities.
of all living entities.
Atma,
Atma,
the body.
The body.
Krishtaha,
Krishtaha,
very dear.
very dear.
Iha,
Iha,
here.
here.
Ipshitaha,
Ipshitaha,
desired.
desired.
Kaha,
Ka,
who.
who,
Utsaheta,
Utsaheta,
can bear.
can bear.
Tam, that body.
That body.
Datum,
Datum,
to deliver.
to deliver.
Vikshamanaya,
Vikshamanaya,
begging.
begging.
Vishnave,
Vishnave,
even to Lord Vishnu.
even to Lord Vishnu.
Translation. In this material world, a very living entity is very much addicted to his material body. Struggling to keep his body forever, everyone tries to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of all his possessions. Therefore, who would be prepared to deliver his body to anyone, even if it were demanded by Lord Vishnu? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is said, Atmanam sarvato rakshitatu dharmam tatodhanam. One must protect his body by all means, then he may protect his religious principles and thereafter his possessions. This is the natural desire of all living entities. No one wants to give up his body unless it is possibly given away. Even though the demigods said that they were demanding that each his body for the benefit in accordance with the Lord, with the order of the Lord Vishnu, Tampichi superficially refused to give them his body. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Putareshnu Mantra Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinami Namaste Saraswati Deva Guravani Prachani Nirvishesha Shinavati Pushkati Vizatani. In this material world, every living entity is very much addicted to this material body, struggling to keep his body forever. Everyone tries to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of all his possessions. Therefore, who would be prepared to deliver his body to anyone, even if it were demanded by Lord Vishnu? So this is a basic logic of a very living entity in the material world. It doesn't exclude the animals or anybody who possesses a material body. There is an instinct to protect and maintain it. Even actually those people who commit suicide, they are also attached to the body, it's just in a negative way. They are so frustrated that their demands from the body to fulfill their desires, are not met, that they give it up. But it's the same thing. It's still attachment to the body. It's so easy to preach around this point your whole life, because all the problems issue from that. From this one simple point, identification with the body. Yesterday, on Vegetarian Saturday, I had a Greek Italian gentleman who placed such amazing questions, like straight from the books. But he was not intellectual at all. Like, why do I suffer? Where do I come from? Like this, immediately. And why there is so much pain? It was like he would print it out in a book, I was thinking, he's repeating something he read. And when you read some books like this, he said, yeah, I read some of your books, but I don't understand them very much. But please, why is there so much pain? Why is this? Well, it's very easy, you just explain to them. So generated from the body and all the expectations which are placed into the body. You expect so much, therefore you are still suffering. The moment one doesn't expect anything, suddenly life gets very simple. One doesn't expect something to get in a place where you cannot get it. We actually became quite intimate in our conversation, and I told him, using the examples of the devotee standing right away in front of his nose, chanting and distributing prasadam, how they actually were originally attempting to derive their pleasure from their body, and how they gave it up and said, well, they are now sitting here chanting Hare Krishna and distributing prasadam. And, the man was so fascinated. Maybe he will come someday. It's a Greek Italian, he was a middle-aged man. But, my God, how many plates he ate, he ate at least like 10 plates. He was sitting there in the back on a bench. And he gave me such a description of the life in the material world, I couldn't say much more. He said, all these people walking around, they made them to numbers. Kind of persons anymore. We are all numbers. He said, I worked in a shopping center. I switched from another shopping center. It's exactly the same equipment. It's the same people. It's the same place. Just the name changed. Nothing changed. It's all the same here. Nothing is changing. It's monotone. There's nothing coming anymore. And then, he was just void. That's the position of somebody who's starting getting interested. He was just, facing a completely black hole. There was nothing more anymore. He said, I thought to commit suicide, but it doesn't seem the right thing to do. I told him, this chanting, what we are doing, this is after suicide. When you not expect anything from the body is just sitting here chanting and that's it. And he was fascinated. He said, yeah, there is a life after death, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it's a quite blissful one, if you want to. And it was like funny conversation we had then. So this is all connected still to the bodily identifications. The body is rocking us the whole day, influencing. Prabhupada said the soul is consciousness and conscious. So it's the consciousness which is the link between the body and the soul. Otherwise the soul only has its own life, its own existence, its own identity. It is the identity. This is really, but because of being still linked up with the consciousness with the body, we have to act in such a bizarre ways sometimes, embarrassing ways. Totally embarrassing. The soul doesn't have to go to the toilet and pass through. The soul doesn't have to sleep. The soul doesn't have to do this. Embarrassing things, actually. The Lord Chaitanya expressed it ultimately to prove that I am not in pure love of Godhead, but I'm still alive. And therefore you see, and this is the first time I read it, it was so fascinating because Sankirtan is a kind of exercise not to really be the body. And you come to situations where you have two choices only, to be the body or not to be the body. Because when you are, this activity, Buddhist devotion, is hellish. It's terrible. It's completely abusive to your false ego. It's entirely disgraceful towards your position in the material world. You are better going around humiliating yourself. It's completely reversing the course of material world. People came here to forget Krishna and you are out there with these books to remember them again. It's completely like swimming against the stream. It doesn't make sense materially whatsoever. There's no reason materially spoken why we should even sit here. Why should we be dressed like this and why should we speak like this? And there's no reason. Therefore, sometimes, as one of my Gopal nicely commented, he said, the more you are in Maya, the more the activities of the materialists appear to you logical and appealing. You think, but look, they are all together here. Look, they are sitting here yesterday, they were all packed like chickens on top of each other in a park, in the middle of Copenhagen. It's pathetic. It's a greenery of 200 square meters, and you have 200 Danes sitting there trying to get some benefit from the sunshine. Just the smell coming from the crowd, you would need actually, it's just, just a smell. Not to speak the visual input, these heaps of meat being exhibited, lying around here and there, slowly warming up in the heat, from the sunshine. And nobody says even thank you to the sunshine because they didn't create that kind of mega solarium. They're just sitting there and enjoying immediately. But what a mediocre enjoyment that is. One square footage, one kami. Sitting on the grass, trying to enjoy. And next to him, next square meter, another one. And he also tries to enjoy. And he's enviously looking on the other one. Are you enjoying now more? As me? Don't do that. Because I will spoil your enjoyment. I'm supposed to enjoy most on this one square meter of grass. And you have, the couples lying around practically having sex life. And just like, animals don't do that. At least not all the time. But otherwise the activity is the same. The sunshine and the lion just flops over, and warms his belly. The cows lay down and chew, Very nice here. You lie on your own food. What more better position you can have. But these poor people have to work really hard So in a weekend they can sit on 1 square meter of grass and stare into the sunshine. Unbelievable. And why do they congregate like this? You don't see people really relating to each other. You know, they just sit there. It's ghastly. So this is totally defying the whole nature of the soul, which is already there, in terms of socializing, in terms of expressing oneself. All this is there. So therefore, there is only two, because it will always be, that was the essential point in Prabhupada's preaching, it will always be controlled by somebody. And some energy is at work which controls us. The question is which one? It's a question of plug. Prabhupada used the simple thing. It's basically the same electricity, but it can be used for heating or cooling. You can reverse the whole thing, but it's the same source. So Krishna is the source of all sources. We are all getting our energy from them. The question is which one? Which plug you are plugged, how you are plugged in. Then it's in the intermediate stage that's expressed in Kama Mishra Bhakti, and we try kind of to reach for the spiritual one, but we don't want to let the material one go. So you plug yourself in, that creates a kind of shortcut. Except for sometimes people look more mad when they join this movement as before. Because before they were harmoniously connected to the Maya plug. And they were like going with the flow and I go to hell like this, nice. That's very nice. I'm cool, you are cool. Here's a cool, I'm cool, you are cool. But when you try to unplug yourself, you realize how strongly you are plugged in. But sometimes you are reaching for the spiritual connection. And then it creates a kind of little bit shortcut, kind of schizophrenic situation. Where suddenly you got powered by the material energy, and then you get a spiritual input, And then it's a very, very difficult stage and unsustainable, because that cannot be sustained, this situation. We have to make our decision finally, where we are connected to. So Krishna is opening here all that spiritual connection, because that's how you act, that's what you do. He is a spiritual master, that's how you surrender, you'll be connected. We can safely say that our whole spiritual life is entirely depending on the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. That's the connection. You are disconnecting yourself from that, regardless any spiritual pursuits and ideas, it's just a flopping in a wind again. It's just, it's no connection. And that's practically visible by the result. Therefore, actually, it's very practical. And like this Sanjay at the end for Bhagavad Gita, he draws the conclusion, not Krishna, but the one who saw it all and reported. Sanjay is the original reporter. Very accurately reported. Well, he is finally saying, wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will be also certainly opulence, victory, extraordinary power and morality. We can safely say, when Maya prevails, there will be no opulence, no victory, no extraordinary power and no morality. Now, these things, Prabhupada said, there are also demons who have merits. They do exhibit some of these things. But they are not accounted for as an asset. They are rather a big obstacle. If you want to really finish somebody off in the material world, you give him opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and his own concept of morality. Well, it sounds like Advaita, isn't it? He manifested all this in full form. Wow, opulence, really far out. They cannot even found yet what the Nazis stole all over the, Europe. It's hidden still, some of the treasures. Victory. In the first place, the victory was shocking even Mr. Hitler himself. He was shocked. Poland was run over in 1 week. Denmark in 3 hours. It was just going like, whoosh. Like the Germans were suddenly here. What an impressive thing. The people were in ecstasy. He was right. We are the superior race. Just see the proof. Regarding morality, Prabhupada called Mr. Hitler be a gentleman. But he called him also a demon on another occasion. But a gentleman means that, yes, Mr. Hitler had a certain principles. He strictly maintained. starting with vegetarian. I don't know how he got to that. But he was aware of Vedic scriptures. I mean, his commanders were not vegetarian, but he was very modest in his sexual life. Just one lady he found he admired. But otherwise he was not a debauchee. Most of the Nazis were not like that. And he was a man of his word. When he said something, promised, he stick to it. Even if it was completely insane and mad. He just insisted, this is my word. That's how it's going to be. That's the rules. So of course, because he was insane, enlightenment, the whole thing got out of control. Because he invented his own concept. There was no parampara. He was the origin and he was the end. It's the wonderful thing in the material world. If you claim to be the origin, you will be also the origin of the end. You will be terminated. But in terms of continuation, where these things manifest and should be steadily maintained and prevail, a spiritual connection has to be made. It's only possible because there is no material solution for material problem. We can sit down and discuss endlessly, but there is no solution from material. The solution can only come from a spiritual platform. And the people, you can see demonstrating in a common society, they're discussing all the time. How should this be better and why should we met? And you should do like this and you should do like that and then it will be better. It's usually worse. Why? Because material nature doesn't supply perfect solutions. It's perfectly imperfect. There's no perfection to be found here regarding our expectation of perfect knowledge, perfect emotional well-being, perfect physical well-being, all once again projected into the body. Stadici is such a wonderful example. He had even a humor, He was way out of the body already. Otherwise, how could you joke like this? Just imagine somebody today in the morning after the prasadam comes and say, I would like to have your body. Can you please, we don't have even the ability to give it up on our own accord. We have to wait for the merciful kick of death so we can ultimately leave the body. We can't even live it now. I knew people who try to commit suicide. I mean, one devotee girl in Czech Republic. She was, of course, intoxicated when she did that, but she fell down from the 5th floor of a building on a concrete floor. Nobody can survive that. She did. Of course, the recovery time was like, they had to patch the body together, it's like, I think she has more steel and iron in the body as bones. But, she survived. And that ultimately brought her desire to be Krishna conscious to full bloom. It's quite an amazing story. Because I was involved to some degree. She was considered being dying in a hospital. She was in coma, of course. And then we made a kirtan in our house. Her father was present. She's a very colorful personality. He's also one of these 130 kilo characters. Perfect cook. Big heart, but a big mouth too. One of these people you don't miss. You cannot miss him. Except he's regularly completely in trouble. It's a champion of non-diplomacy. But an extremely honest person with a heavy criminal background. This is common, Yeah. He spent quite some years in jail. So, but I like people like this because they are so easy to read. There's nothing, there's not a second one there inside you have to discover. He's just what he is. That's what we do. So, becoming inspired about Krishna consciousness inspired his daughter too. Nevertheless, this thing happened to her. So after that, she became practically like his disciple. She's until today. She must be by now 30 years old. She lives with her father together and worships him like a guru. Very unusual situation. You don't see no one like that. Whatever he says, yes. Because she knows somewhere you can fly from the balcony again. It's a very deep experience, you carry with you. So these traumatic experiences have their meaning. You know, yeah. This is what I explained yesterday to this gentleman. I said, isn't this so accidental or what? My mother died when I was 12. Seems accident? You know, why did she die? Not you. You know, oh no, there must be some reason, isn't it? Yeah. Of course there is a reason for everything. Once this is understood, life gets very easy. Then it's only one question. How can we connect ourselves to that spiritual world? That's the real problem. That's the only and real problem we have. How can I connect myself and stay connected? This is not a one-man job. The desire ultimately has to come from us. That Krishna will never interfere with. But how to conduct oneself thereafter, you know, well, therefore we have this whole line of parampara, means Guru Shastra and Sadhu. And Sadhu is the whole army waiting there to assist. It's already there to assist, to help. You know, because being in that body, it's very difficult to ascertain sometimes how it's to be outside of it. Very difficult. The more we get it, you know, the more happy we become, of course. Because we can see how the body works under a certain condition. You know, you can see it, you can test yourself, like in crisis situations, it's a very good test. Then you can see immediately who is who, from the bodily conditioning. There are those who cry in despair, running here and there, well, as they should have. And there are those who think, oh, how to secure their riches and how their possessions, well, that's the Vaisha. And there are those who will just try immediately assist and organize others so minimum damage can be sustained. That's the purpose. And there are those who will just sometimes not even take part so much because they know the consequences of their actions. And they will act preventively. Therefore, there is no way to act preventively unless we are dominated by Brahminical brain. There's no way. Because only Brahmana can see, don't do this because then that will happen. Kshatriyas have problems with this. They just go, okay, action. And then they wonder, oh, my whole army is finished. You know, what happened? Oh, you know. So you need strategists, the real strategists and the real visionaries, the Brahmana. Anybody else babbling his visions is more or less a hoax. Because he will be captured on a day by very temporary consideration. And he will be baffled by material energy. So therefore, Prabhupada stressed this so much. We have to be guided and dominated by Brahminical intelligence. And then we can prevent lots of misery and pain obstacles in this world. So it's a very simple point being made here. And there is so much help actually, so much assistance. It's not just the books. Because Shastra in itself can be, even as difficult to Prabhupada's books, but still, it can be subjected to our subjective, you know, speculation. And then, there is Guru. That's, you know, I just read him last Prabhupada from this book, which was published in 1987, obviously for more internal use, you know. Obviously there was already, you know, issues coming up which were needed to be addressed. Like relationship, GBC Temple President, and, you know, all this. Because the movement grows so big, things become sometimes big means sometimes disconnected. You know, yeah. It's the bigger it is, the worse it is to create a flow of conversation around and a communication around. So things don't get, you know, otherwise we end up like Alexander was the one who was scolded. He conquered one country and lost the other one, and he conquered another and lost. Prabhupada said, this is not what we should do. We should actually, yes, we should be in a conquering mood. You know, Prabhupada